Guide to Customs and Etiquette, Culture Smart is a book for you. The author is Nicki Grihault, an English travel writer and journalist who has lived and worked abroad for many years, particularly in India, previously at Women Abroad. She now works as travel editor of Executive Women magazine and writes on cross-cultural issues for Culture Shock Consulting. She is the author of Working in Asia in print, 1996. Now, so there are other books in the series, as you can see: Culture Smart Australia, Culture Smart Britain, Culture Smart China, Culture Smart Finland, Culture Smart France, Culture Smart Germany, Culture Smart Greece, Culture Smart Hong Kong, Culture Smart Ireland, Culture Smart Italy, Culture Smart Japan, Culture Smart Korea, etc. As you say, you can Culture Smart USA, etc. So, and they've also written other titles are in preparation. For more information, contact, and they've given you the email ID out here. This is the one. Okay. Now, this book offers illuminating insights into Indian culture and society. It will help you to turn your visit, whether on business or for pleasure, into a memorable and enriching experience. And the contents that include are how to avoid culture shock, Indian attitudes and values, historical and political background, religion, customs and traditions, the Indians at home, leisure, social and cultural life, do's, don'ts and taboos, body language, hospitality, food and drink, giving and receiving gifts, business briefing, language and communication. So the Culture Smart series provides essential information on attitude, beliefs and behavior in different countries, etc. You can go through that, and the ISBN number is given here as 1-55868-705-X. The cover is pretty attractive, and in the introduction she writes, India is a land of contrast, of some very rich and many very poor people, of modernism and medievalism. India is not a poor country. She is abundantly supplied with everything that makes a country rich, yet her people are very poor, wrote Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, independent India. And these words are true today as when Nehru penned them in 1944. Modern India is a vast country full of complexity and contradictions. It has great natural beauty as well as urban ugliness wrought by extreme poverty. This paradox can best be understood by recognizing that India exists in several centuries at the same time. A small, sophisticated modern elite of a few million lives surrounded by hundreds of millions of primitive people. India has the largest pool of scientists and technologists after the United States, yet almost half of its population is illiterate. It is the birthplace of two major world religions, yet its temples stand on squalid, polluted streets. It is impossible to be unmoved by India. Visit India and you will never be the same again, say the tourist brochures. It is true. The very name stirs the imagination, and a visit is an adventure. India will change you. It is difficult to generalize about Indian culture. India's multi-layered people have diverse languages, religions, attitudes, and ways of life. Yet, from all this emerges an underlying cultural unity that gives rise to a distinctive Indian way of being. Culture Smart India sets out to explain India to the foreign visitor. It describes the Indian psyche, attitudes and values touching on all aspects of life, From the marketplace to the boardroom, it gives a first-time visitor a basic cultural orientation and forms an ideal companion to conventional travel guides. Culture Smart India will not tell you what time a train departs, but it will help you to understand the behavior of the people on it. The Indians you will meet may or may not have certain expectations of Westerners. Whatever the case, they will appreciate politeness, patience, gentleness, and an understanding of what makes up the many facets of their lives. Whether you are going to India on business or for pleasure, an awareness of the background, customs, and way of life, what was once the jewel in the crown of the British Empire, now described as an awakening giant, will enable you to have an enlightening, fruitful, and rewarding visit. Talking about the Indian psyche, Indian culture is family-oriented and patriarchal. This strongly religious society has great respect for age, tradition, and sacred symbols. People dress and present themselves modestly and don't tolerate behavior contrary to religious tradition. The key impact of religion on daily life is through the inequality posed by the caste system and the accompanying belief in karma or fate, which exonerates bad driving on the buses, for example. A wide chasm exists between rich and poor, and social mobility is difficult, if not impossible. The caste system means accepting one's place even by living on the street and accounts for the acceptance of a large beggar class. However, people are not expected to show emotions in the face of their fate, and assertiveness is the norm. The Indians are proud of their country. They believe in simple material comforts and rich spiritual accomplishments. The nurturing of relationships, tolerance, social harmony, and hospitality are paramount. People do things through friends and relatives, so approach anything you need to get done with this in mind. Privacy is not important here. India is a collectivist culture. Ideals of humility and self-denial are respected. The ability to absorb many different cultural influences and integrate them into their own religious and philosophical framework is an Indian trait. Their bureaucracy is perhaps an unfortunate example of this, where you might expect forms to be filled out in triplicate. In India, they must be filled out 10 times. 3 aspects of life you're assured of during a visit to India are slowness, delays, and lots of paperwork. Waiting in long lines is a fact of life, and punctuality is not an Indian quality. So this is what they have experienced out here. A little bit of change in this, I'm sure. So you must read this. Even as an Indian, when I read it, I was so fascinated. So as a foreigner, I'm sure you will enjoy it. So Culture Smart India by Nicki, Grihault, and I'm sure others also must be very interesting. Have a read.